You think you know how to read a seat map? You don't. You think that paying an extra $50 for preferred seating guarantees you a comfortable flight? It absolutely doesn't. I once watched a grown man, a guy in a tailored suit, who looked like he ran a Fortune 500 company, literally weep, tears streaming down his face, because he paid premium prices for row E, the bulkhead. He thought he was buying legroom, he thought he was buying status. What he actually bought was a seat with armrests that don't move, a tray table that crushes your stomach, and the privilege of sitting 6 inches away from the bassinet hook, where a screaming infant spent the entire 6-hour flight to London. He had no bag storage, he had no escape. And honestly, I couldn't do a single thing to help him. The airline algorithms are designed to trick you. They color-code these seat maps to make you panic buy upgrades that are actually downgrades. I'm Benny. I've been a flight attendant for 15 years. I've logged millions of miles. I've worked on everything from regional hoppers to massive wide bodies, and I've seen every mistake a passenger can make. I know which seats have the best air quality, which ones get served first, and which ones are essentially just expensive torture devices. Today, I am going to deconstruct the entire cabin. I'm going to show you the specific rows that look great on a screen, but feel like a prison in the air. We are going to talk about the ghost seat strategy, the box-in method, and why the back of the plane is actually the VIP section, if you know how to work the system. So, buckle up. Let's tear this plane apart. First, we have to talk about the biggest lie in aviation marketing. The exit row. I see it every single day. People fight for these seats. They pay significant money for them, and half the time, they board the plane, sit down, and immediately look at me with regret in their eyes. Here's the reality: airlines don't put in the fine print. Yes, you get legroom, but you are trading thermal comfort for knee space. The exit row is almost always the coldest part of the plane. It has to be. The insulation around the emergency hatches is thinner than the rest of the fuselage walls. There is a draft. If you are flying at 7,000 feet, the outside air temperature is roughly -20 degrees. You are sitting next to a door that is essentially a freezer seal. I have passengers in the exit row begging me for blankets 10 minutes after takeoff. And here's the kicker. On many domestic flights now, we don't cater blankets in economy, so you're stretching your legs, sure, but you're shivering for 4 hours. But that's not even the worst part of the exit row trap, it's the recline. If you are in the first of 2 exit rows, your seat does not recline. It is legally mandated to be stiff as a board, so you don't block the evacuation path for the person behind you. You paid extra for a seat that forces you to sit at a 90-degree angle, like a reprimanded schoolchild. Is that worth the extra 3 inches of knee space? For some tall people maybe, for everyone else, you just paid a premium to be uncomfortable. Also, consider the window seat in an exit row. On many aircraft configurations, specifically the Boeing 737 Aries, which is the workhorse of the sky, the window seat in the exit row often doesn't have an armrest on the window side, or the seat cushion is slightly narrower to accommodate the door mechanism, so you're leaning against a cold wall with your shoulder dangling in space. It's miserable. Let's move to the front, the bulkhead. This is the wall separating economy from business or first class. Parents love this row because of the floor space. But if you aren't traveling with kids, this is the danger zone. I mentioned the immovable armrests in the intro. But let me explain why that matters. In a normal row, if the middle seat is empty, you can lift the armrest and spread out. You can angle your body. In the bulkhead, the tray table is stored inside the armrest. That makes the seat structure solid metal. You lose about 2 inches of hip width. If you are a larger person, or even just an average-sized person wearing a winter coat, the bulkhead is a vice grip. Plus, you have no underseat storage in front of you. That means for takeoff and landing, which can sometimes take 15 minutes if we're sitting on the tarmac, you cannot access your bag. No laptop, no water bottle, no headphones. Everything has to go in the overhead bin. If the bin is full, we have to check your bag to your final destination. I've seen people lose their minds because they booked row woo thinking it was premium, only to have their iPad checked into the cargo hold because the bins were full and they had no seat in front of them to slide the bag under. Now, let's get into the psychology of the middle seat. Nobody wants the middle, it's the penalty box of aviation. But there is a way to manipulate the seating chart to get a row to yourself. This is what we call poor man's business class. It works best when you are traveling as a couple. Never ever book A and B, or B and C. That leaves the third seat open, and a solo traveler will book it. Instead, you book the window and the aisle. You book A and C, you leave B empty. Here's why this works. Solo travelers avoid middle seats like the plague. They will pick literally any other seat on the plane before they pick a middle seat between two occupied seats. Unless the flight is by full, that middle seat will stay empty. You get the whole row. If someone does show up to sit in the middle, you simply offer them the aisle or the window. Nobody in the history of aviation has ever refused a trade from a middle seat to an aisle seat. You look like a hero. You sit next to your partner, and you've lost nothing. But by of the time, you get the luxury of space. Speaking of space, let's talk about turbulence. I get asked constantly, Benny, I get airsick, where should I sit? The answer is physics. You want to sit over the wings. Think of the plane like a seesaw. The nose and the tail move the most. The middle, the fulcrum, moves the least. If you book a seat in the very back of the plane because it was cheaper, you are going to feel every single bump, yaw, and sway. The tail of the plane also tends to fishtail, slightly in high winds. If you have a weak stomach, the back of the plane is a vomit comet. Stick to rows sure through Arshi. Generally right over the wing box. It's the most stable ride you will get. However, stability isn't the only comfort factor. We need to talk about noise. This is something the seat maps never show you. The soundscape of an airplane is not uniform. If you sit forward of the engines, it is significantly quieter. As soon as you move behind the engines, the noise level jumps up by several decibels, because you are hearing the exhaust and the thrust. But the real noise pollution isn't the engine, it is the galley and the lavatory. This brings me to the absolute worst seats on the plane. The ones I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, the last row. Do not do it. I don't care if it saves you $40, do not book the last row. First off, the seats usually don't recline because they are up against a wall. Second, you are right next to the lavatory. You are going to hear the vacuum flush, which sounds like a jet engine imploding, every 3 minutes for the entire flight. You are going to smell things you don't want to smell. You are going to have people hovering over you, bumping your shoulder, while they wait in line for the bathroom. And from a flight attendant's perspective, you are right in my workspace. We are in the back galley preparing carts, slamming oven doors, talking about our layovers, and gossiping about passengers. We try to be quiet on re-days, but it's a kitchen. It's noisy. If you are in the last row, you are essentially sleeping in a restaurant kitchen next to a public toilet. However, and this is a massive however, the back of the plane has a secret advantage. If you want service, if you want free stuff, sit in the back. This is an us versus them secret that airlines don't want you to know. If you are sitting in row sheer and you ask me for an extra mini bottle of wine or a second bag of pretzels, I have to walk all the way to the front, get it, and walk all the way back. I'm likely to say, I'll check if we have enough, and then forget because I'm busy. But if you are in row senshi, you are 5 feet away from me. If you are nice, and you ask politely, I can slip you a double pour of vodka or an extra snack box without anyone else seeing. It's low effort for me. We bond with the people in the back. The people in the front are customers. The people in the back are in the trenches with us. I've given more free amenities to nice people in row Senshawu than I ever have to people in Economy Plus. Now, before I tell you the single filthiest place on the plane, and it's a spot you touch immediately when you sit down, I want to ask you a favor. If you want to fly like a pro, if you want to understand the system so it stops taking advantage of you, hit that subscribe button. I'm dropping videos every week, exposing the industry secrets that save you money and sanity. Join the crew. Okay, let's talk hygiene. You grab your seat, you settle in, and you lean your head against the window to sleep. Stop. Do not touch that window wall. I have seen people sneeze on that wall. I have seen people pick their nose and wipe it on that wall. I have seen shirtless passengers sweat against that wall. And here is the dark truth. The cleaning crew does not wipe down the walls. Between flights, the cleaners have maybe chiffon utes. They cross the seat belts, they clear the trash from the seat pockets, and they wipe the tray tables, sometimes. They absolutely do not scrub the sidewalls of the fuselage. That greasy smudge on the window. That's human oil from the last 1,000 people who sat there. But even the window isn't the worst part. The worst part is the seat back pocket. I call it the garbage pouch. I have found dirty diapers in there. I have found bags of vomit that didn't quite seal. I have found used tissues, apple cores, and toenail clippings. People treat that pocket like a trash can. The cleaners empty it, but they do not sanitize the inside fabric. Never put your phone in the seat back pocket. Never put your glasses in there. If you put your water bottle in there, wipe the bottle down before you drink from it. It is a petri dish of bacteria. So, how do you actually pick the best seat? What is the algorithm for success? Here is my Benny-approved checklist for picking a seat, assuming you are flying economy. E. Check the aircraft type. Don't just look at the time of the flight, look at the metal. Is it a TTTT, an A-Fay Archiyi, a T-Centi Max? Use a site like Seat Guru or Aerolopa. Aerolopa is actually better these days because it shows the actual window alignment. R. The window alignment. This is a huge one. There are missing window rows on almost every aircraft due to air conditioning ducts running through the wall. If you book a window seat, make sure you actually get a window. Sitting next to a blank plastic wall for 5 hours is claustrophobic and depressing. Sen. The buffer zone. You want to be at least 5 rows away from a lavatory or a galley to avoid the noise and smell. But not so far forward that you are in the bulkhead trap. See the aisle armrest. If you are an aisle person, check if the armrest goes up. On many planes, there is a secret button underneath the aisle armrest near the hinge. If you press it, the armrest lifts. This is a game changer for getting in and out and for giving yourself a little more hip room once the cart has passed. Let's talk about the upgrade offers. You'll get an email 24 hours before your flight. Upgrade to first class for lavatory. Should you take it? Here is the math you need to do. On a domestic flight, first class is just a wider seat and free booze. It is not a lie flatbed. If the flight is less than 2 hours, it is a waste of money. You won't have enough time to drink lavatory worth of alcohol. However, if the flight is over 3 hours and you have checked bags, it might be worth it. First class usually includes 2 free checked bags. If you were going to pay 10,000 yuan for bags anyway, the upgrade is really only costing you 1,000 yuan for 3 hours of space and a meal. That's a decent deal. But be careful with the Economy Plus or Main Cabin Extra upgrades. Sometimes, these are just regular seats with 3 extra inches of legroom. If you are woos, C, you do not need those 3 inches. Do not pay for them. The width is the same. The service is the same. You are paying for air. There is another variable we need to discuss, the left side bias. This is a weird psychological quirk, but on many planes, the entry door is on the left. Passengers board and turn right. Because of the way the galleys are configured, the left side of the plane often has slightly more foot traffic, because the flight attendants align their carts on that side. On some wide-body aircraft, the overhead bins on the center section are larger than the bins on the window sides. If you are a heavy packer, if you are bringing a carry-on that is pushing the limits of the size restrictions, aim for the center aisle. The bins are deeper. you are less likely to have to check your bag. Let's dig deeper into the safety aspect. I know it's morbid, and airlines hate when we talk about this. But you want to know, statistically, where do you survive a crash? The data is clear, the back third of the aircraft. Think about it. The mountain doesn't back into the plane. The plane hits the mountain nose first. The energy dissipates as it travels back through the fuselage. The tail section is the most likely to remain intact. However, survival isn't just about the impact. It's about the evacuation. Most survivable accidents are survivable because people get out fast. Smoke is the real killer, not the impact. So, the safe seat isn't just in the back, it's an aisle seat. Or a seat within 5 rows of an exit. I always count the rows to the nearest exit when I sit down as a passenger. I touch the seats as I count. 1, 2, 3, 4, exit. Why? Because if the cabin fills with smoke, you can't see. You need to be able to feel your way to the door. If you are buried in a window seat in the middle of a massive section, your escape time doubles. If you are an anxious flyer, pick an aisle seat in the rear third of the plane. You are safer, and you are closer to the flight attendants if you start to panic. We notice the people in the back. We can keep an eye on you. Now, I want to address a trend. I'm seeing that you need to avoid the basic economy trap. Airlines have introduced these fares that don't let you pick a seat until check-in. They dangle a low price in front of you. Do not do it. When you fly basic economy, you are the bottom of the food chain. You are the standby for seats. You will be assigned whatever is left. And what is left? The middle seats in the last row. The seats next to the toilets. The seats that don't recline. But worse, you are the first to be bumped. If the flight is oversold, and flights are almost always oversold, the algorithm looks for the lowest fare class without a seat assignment to kick off. That's you. You risk ruining your entire vacation to save $40. Value your time and your dignity more than that. Pay the standard fare so you can select a seat, control your destiny. Let's talk about the sun glare factor. This sounds trivial until you are on a morning flight from New York to LA. If you are flying west in the morning, sit on the right side of the plane. The sun is in the south. If you sit on the left, the sun will be blasting into your window for 5 hours. You'll have to keep the shade down, which ruins the view. If you sit on the right, you have the view of the landscape without the blinding glare. Flying east, flip it. These are the tiny details that separate a rookie flyer from a veteran. I also want to touch on the electronics box issue. Underneath some seats, there is a metal box that powers the in-flight entertainment screens. This box takes up half of your foot space. If you value legroom, you need to know where these boxes are. Usually, they are under the aisle seats or the window seats, leaving the middle seat with clear foot space. This is the only advantage of the middle seat. But how do you know? Seat Guru used to be good for this, but it's outdated. The best way is to look for high-density configurations on the booking map. If the rows look incredibly squished on the map, assume there is an equipment box eating your legroom. Let's circle back to the US versus them. Dynamic with the crew. Your seat choice affects how we treat you. If you sit in the bulkhead, we are awkwardly staring at you during takeoff and landing. We are sitting in our jump seats, facing you. It's awkward for you, and it's awkward for us. We try not to make eye contact, but you are right there. If you want privacy, do not pick the first row of economy. If you sit in the aisle, please. I am begging you, watch your elbows. The beverage cart weighs £pounds when it is full. It is a metal battering ram. If you fall asleep with your elbow sticking out into the aisle, that cart will hit your funny bone with the force of a sledgehammer. And it's not because we are mean. It's because we can't see your elbow when we are pushing the cart from the other end. Protect yourself. Stay inside the seat frame. And finally, let's talk about the swap. You board the plane, you have your perfect aisle seat, Char C. You did your homework, and then someone taps you on the shoulder. Excuse me, would you mind switching so I can sit next to my husband? And they point to Sencha C, a middle seat. In the back, here is the rule. You are under no obligation to switch. None. It is not rude to say no. You paid for that seat. You selected it early. They didn't, however. If you want to be a saint, only trade for an equal or better seat. Aisle for aisle, or aisle for window, is a fair trade. Aisle for middle is a scam. Do not fall for the social pressure. And if a flight attendant asks you to move, that's different. If we ask you to move, it's usually for a weight and balance issue, on smaller planes, or to accommodate a broken seat. If we move you, ask for compensation. Ask nicely. I'm happy to help the crew, but is there any way you could provide some miles for the inconvenience? We have tablets. We can issue compensation on the spot in many cases. But you have to ask. Picking a seat is a strategy game. It's about minimizing pain and maximizing control. The airlines view you as cargo. They want to fit as many of you into the tube as possible. They monetize your discomfort. They make the standard seats just uncomfortable enough that you consider paying for the upgrade. It is manufactured misery. Don't let them win. Avoid the bulkhead. Avoid the last row. Check the window alignment. Wipe down your area. And for the love of everything holy, keep your feet out of the aisle. The perfect seat exists. It's usually row char to archi, window or aisle, away from the galley, with a functioning recline. It's quiet, it's stable, and it's clean. Next time you fly, don't just click random assignment. Take 5 minutes to study the map. Your back, your knees, and your sanity will thank you. I've got a story coming up in the next video about a passenger who tried to upgrade himself to business class mid-flight and why the pilot almost diverted the plane because of it. It's a wild one. You don't want to miss it. Fly smart, keep your seatbelt fastened, and I'll see you in the sky. Peace.